Ribai Sangha Gotrovane Kosongdeo Tabel Tajakala Jobegin Samanatani Tashi Direction.
How you're all doing. Tashidele to all the Sangha around the world, and thank you for joining us on the live stream.
Thank you. Rinpocze wita wszystkich.
Tata, Kiroda Bag, Kashiki, Nita, Sabatamji, Single, Richard Yorita, Kangnitani Tata, Chitoka Sakani, Nawasaji, Samag, Lamanambi, Wang Bukot Naki Yore, Tritter, Kachi, Jun Ram, Yore, Kashi, one tick me shogo, my changing money. Tinyam Limajil, Nivachibo Yore, yes, Yore, the town in the Gamari. Kashik one Kate Tona Shogo, Esongre, Telatonaji Yore, the one changing money, so with the one two other changing money, so with the Kang Gamari dinner, Latik, Namishina, or Latik Tangari, Latamti, Jartamti, on the check the Tangi already. This team I did a Rendam the Ganda Nabantaso, Totana Banaso, Yadam Nabanaso Yore. There are one ship at the Munatini, Kanga one Kate Tona Shogo.
And today we are receiving the Vajrapani empowerment, and there might be a few newer Dharma friends here, and there's one important thing that you should understand, and that is nowadays many lamas confer many different empowerments in various centers around the world. And regarding the receiving of an empowerment, there are basically two different ways of viewing that. Now, some people say that it's better not to receive too many empowerments. Because if you receive an empowerment and then you don't practice it well, then that's a great fault. So that's actually not true at all. So then the other view is that it's the more empowerments you receive, the better it is. And there's actually something meaningful to that. So we can see which one we should pick, the first one or the second one. So because if you practice a single deity, it's okay to practice a single deity. However, it is important to understand that when you practice just a single deity, all the empowerments, all the deities from whom you have received empowerments are actually complete. So it's therefore sufficient to practice a single deity and still receive empowerments. Because it is said within the expanse of primordial wisdom, all the Buddhas are one. And so for this reason, we really shouldn't say at all that you shouldn't receive empowerment because that's a great fault if you can't practice it. So there's all kinds of different empowerments, and there's different lineages, different Yidam deities, and various different individuals, different kinds of practitioners and gurus and so on. But whichever one it is, what is the actual meaning of the empowerment? That is what needs to be understood. And if you really understand the meaning of empowerment, then you see that actually the more empowerments you receive, the better it is.
Więc dzisiaj będziemy otrzymywać inicjację buddyjską i wielu lamów udziela z różnych linii inicjacji i możemy to widzieć na dwa różne sposoby. Jedni mówią, że nie należy otrzymywać zbyt wielu inicjacji, że jest to złe, a inni praktykujący wierzą, że im więcej otrzymujemy inicjacji, tym lepiej. I musimy o tym pamiętać, że wystarczy praktykować jedną praktykę jednego idama i że jest to wystarczające, aby doprowadzić nas do oświecenia. I przyjrzyjmy się tym dwóm poglądom. I to co Garchen Rinpocze mówi, to, że jest wielu guru, wiele różnych linii przekazu, jest wielu praktykujących o różnych skłonnościach i potrzebach, jednakże pomimo tego, że praktyka jednej praktyki jest wystarczająca do udzielenia oświecenia, to otrzymywanie wielu inicjacji jest wskazane. Otrzymujemy dzięki temu wiele błogosławieństw i przynosi nam to pożytek.
민지 왕고 고갑이요. 로가를 동진나라지 고갑이요 말이 별로. 때렸다 당 왕지선 하대. 그래서 그래서 톱톱이요 이제. 무슨 남설이 왕고 도나 톱톱이요 말 그래서 때 물을 못지 죽버들 고가를 되는 왕쇼 윤시 가래들 민지 가래 민고 샘데 산지엘 민고를 그래서 마음이버셈 가래들 자고를 해야지. 자고를 해야지. 미버셈 가래들 잡소를 해야지. 오, 산지 습지지 봐라. 저런데 잡소니 제발 요래. 어때때 저런데 마저리 줄이 능해도 왜? 저런 마저리 능해 요래지. 오, 습지인들 가운데 능해 요래지. 오, 민소는 대화도 잡지처럼 상황 요래. 랑나 상황 요래. 지금 핑크 요래. 나고 잡아. 땡이라서 같은 적은 민기 요래. 뒤따오도 거는 왕 같이 통이 쇼고래 대신도 뭐 요리들이 왕가 서무대 요래. 그리 왕 레이션의 서무디 첫째가 첫째서 됐다 약그 요래. 빼지다 그러지. 근데 왕의 서무 사람 나오는 때 쳤다 왔는지 착그 요래. 대외 왕쇼고 그랬지.
So what's the reason that we have to receive an empowerment? The empowerment is called the Ripening Empowerment. No matter who confers the empowerment, the purpose of any empowerment is to mature or to ripen the mind. And that's the real meaning of empowerment, the real purpose of receiving an empowerment. So what is to be ripened or matured? For example, it's just like the seed of a flower sprouting and then growing into a flower. And then once it is a flower, from a single flower, many hundreds of more seeds then emerge. So the seed, like the seed of a flower during an empowerment, what is that seed actually? Actually, all sentient beings possess that seed. The Buddha Shakyamuni had said that all sentient beings are actually Buddhas. So that is the potential, the cause for Buddhahood. Gampopa said in the Jewel Ornament of Liberation, the cause is Buddha nature. So it is given this excellent name, Buddha nature or Tathagata Garbha, which means the essence of those gone, the dust gone ones. And so what does that mean to go to go beyond, basically? It is that when you recognize the true nature of the mind, then you can go beyond, which means you can attain the state of awakening. And if you do not realize the nature of the mind, then you are in samsara. So if you realize it, you are a Buddha, and not realizing it, you are in samsara. So that's the difference. And in order to realize the nature of the mind, we receive the ripening empowerment, which is just like a ripening the seed of a flower into a flower. So we learn during the empowerment that sentient beings can ripen into Buddhas. And that's the only difference between Buddhas and sentient beings. It's just the temporary appearance, but then now, temporarily, we speak about Buddhists and non-Buddhists and so on, but really, or different lineages and so on. But actually, all sentient beings of the 6 realms of samsara possess Buddha nature. They have the same nature, and yet it is only the precious human body that is endowed with 6 elements or constituents that has the karmic fortune, the great merit to accomplish enlightenment. It is only the precious human body that has the opportunity to receive a ripening empowerment and then practice the Vajrayana. Any sentient being in the other 6 realms do not have those opportunities. And of course, they can still receive the blessings of an empowerment, for example, and some benefit, but they are not actually able to engage in practice. They cannot really accomplish the real purpose of the empowerment. So it's really only the precious human body, a precious human being, that has the karmic fortune to do so. And so, again, what's the reason we receive an empowerment? It is so that we can mature. And what needs to mature? The mind needs to mature into a Buddha. So what is the immature mind? The immature mind is like an ice block. And the mature mind is like an ocean water. And that's the difference between Buddhas and sentient beings, like the difference between ice and water. So you need to melt the ice block. So for as long as you don't melt your own ice block, you suffer, don't you? And so in that moment of being a sentient being, that existence is bound to suffering. And when you mature, then you experience great bliss, and the bliss comes from your freedom, like ocean water. Ocean water is free. And also you attain the ability to benefit others. For example, just like rain falling from the sky and so on, just naturally permeating beings with benefit. And so for this reason, in brief, the more empowerments you receive, the better it is. Because all beings possess Buddha nature, and during the empowerment, it is like we are bringing this seed to its full potential. We are ripening it. And therefore, every time you receive an empowerment, it's like you're adding a little bit of water to the seed that you have already planted. So first you plant your seed, and whenever you receive a ripening empowerment, you're adding some water to that seed. And so for this reason, it's important to receive empowerment.
To jest powodem tego, aby otrzymywać inicjację. Jest to tak zwana po angielsku Ripening Empowerment, dojrzewająca inicjacja. I co dojrzewa? Jest to dojrzewanie naszego umysłu. I Rinpocze podaje przykład tak jak z nasionem i z kwiatem, w którym nasiono symbolizuje nasz potencjał, naszą wrodzoną naturę Buddy, a kwiat symbolizuje w pełni oświecony umysł. Wszystkie istoty we wszystkich 6 światach samsary mają potencjał oświeconego umysłu, jednakże jedynie istoty w świecie ludzi mają wszystkie warunki i przyczyny tego, aby osiągnąć pełne oświecenie. I wspominał o tym na przykład Buddha Shakyamuni, mówił o tym, że wszystkie istoty mają naturę Buddy. Mówił o tym również Gampopa. Ta książka się nazywa po angielsku Ornament of Liberation i w chwili, gdy rozpoznamy tą naszą naturę Buddy, jesteśmy Buddą, a jeśli nie rozpoznamy jej, wciąż pozostajemy istotą w samsarze. I kolejnym przykładem, który Rinpocze dawał, to tak jak z blokiem lodu i z wodą. Dopóki jesteśmy w samsarze, nasz umysł przypomina blok wody, a w momencie osiągnięcia oświecenia on się topi, stajemy się wodą, posiadamy wszystkie właściwości i wolności, które ma woda. Doświadczamy wielkiego błogosławieństwa. albo stanu błogości związanego z oświeceniem, a drugą właściwością oświeconego umysłu to jest to, że możemy pomagać innym i w związku z tym im więcej inicjacji możemy uzyskać, tym lepiej. Każda z tych inicjacji to jest tak jak, wyobraźmy sobie, że jesteśmy tym nasionem, które może przekształcić się w kwiat i każda z tych kolejnych inicjacji dodaje trochę wody i sprawia, że ta roślina może zacząć rosnąć.
야, 막 그거한테 며칠 양도했나? 그래 고소라도 그래. 그래 네가 나한테 채를 자공 손을
Nie wiem, czy o tym wspominałem, ale Rinpoche mówił, że udzielanie inicjacji istotom z innych światów, na przykład zwierzętom, czy istoty z tych niewidzialnych światów, one otrzymują pożytek z inicjacji, jest to błogosławieństwo, jednakże jedynie istoty w świecie ludzi mają tą możliwość, aby praktykować te praktyki, więc jesteśmy w niezwykle takiej szczęśliwej, dobrej sytuacji.
대외를 땀 좋게 지서 다 왕문에 사촉설을 대외 뒤담석에 주왕 마주나 주 삼재미나 주 삼재라서나 주 인증은 되게 유모가 적을 나속대 고런 참고요래 왕 마주나 주시 내 왕수요면 내 제당 차도 가대 되는 저게 요래 저것도 왜 대응 성수는 너도 올라다 저게 요래면서 왕수니 사족선 삼바는 게 다 보잖네. 때는 나그 셈으로 자르네. 나딘처럼 그러고 싶네. 다 사족선 별로 저도 잡았다. 저럼 잡았을 텐데. 대다를 털에 될 왕수고 저 동태 습지 담실 디스트릭트 요래. 어나 왕수도 담색성 거 시바 다소 싸고 담색들이 삼바던 문제래. 삼바던 게 줄었지라. 이 나디 매반도네. 사바체면 이제 체면하지 나디 매반도는 대신 저런 것도 쉬어고요. 그래서 약지쳐도 예배 받자고요. 이 차마 차가 바로 동해를 잡고요 말이. 내가 동해를 잘 탑 내왔던 데가 탑들이 소강 나서면 안 되는 거 사제가 소문에 당고 왕 쉬어고 봐. 왕가 제시나. 이 마체 왕 쉬사리 왕 랑도 왕리. 그래서 하나 담색 냠나 왕가 쉬고요. 소탈것들이 소종래 막 소종들이 왕수가 왕을 왕인지 쪽으로래 일에서 사만이 왕인지 대강들이 소들이 차로 착동되는데 야 조금은 요래야 조 탑들이 전된 차로만 잡아 탑 양다한테 담색 소들이 왕가 담색도 적하고 그다 왕가 담색 상태에 왕수나 마준이 조 상태라서는 동네 손으로 저래 왕순이 담성 마송너더니 리바테스 체르데 나지 다다 왕순이 시계도 체드세 바티지 바를 마도 저be 왕마지나 유모반이 받지 바래 유모바라시 로아르도 대란지 차대열에 저번주 뒤수고 그선에 좀 되게 직삼을 한 속이지 저시 당같이 냐와라 속 이제 세나한테는 다 그러나도 내가 또 로아르도 멍떡을 하서 무슨 차려야지 대다로 지는 데 있어 너가 왕 저거 봤다 왕가 담색도 삼재이 봐 맨지 저때 대신은 뭐 소소로 봐 하고는 대다 왕 저거 봤대 맞더라고 왕이 전에 그리 따로 담색도 삼재이 봐 대에서부터 하고서는 그리 태동적인 요 말이 대하장 기침 뭐래 그때 좀다 가니나 라마 석에나 왕시 받으려고 나쪽과 차대요. 돈들이 소들이 도대 아직 소 상태가 좋대 아들소 나중에 잘 좋은데 나중에 잘한데 파티 종교에 도서 종 마고 왕 대지 동쪽과를 대 주로 넘버 3이 니르신게 일인데도 기초 뭐요래 대 왕의 동다 디바스.
So how has the mind become like an ice block? How is it frozen? It's because we haven't realized the true nature of the mind. And if you don't realize the true nature of your mind, then there's a perception of a self. So you hold on to this belief that there exists self and other. And due to this dualistic grasping, we develop thoughts of attachment, aversion, and ignorance. And you cling to the true existence of appearances, the concrete existence. And as a result of such clinging, you experience suffering. As a human being, we mainly experience the suffering of birth, aging, sickness, and death. And then there is a lot of suffering in the other of the 6 realms of samsara. And we can see the suffering in this world, everywhere in this world. And so how did that happen? Why is there so much suffering? It's because of that self. It is because we believe in a self, the existence of a self that does not actually exist. So the belief in it in itself is not what's so wrong, but it's because it doesn't exist. So if a self would actually exist, then nobody is saying that you couldn't believe in it. Then it's fine to believe in it. But the thing is that it doesn't actually exist. So that is what we call the confusion of sentient beings. They perceive a self, a dualistic existence of self and other that actually doesn't exist. And the Buddha had realized that there is actually no self. So that realization is called the wisdom realizing selflessness. So the Buddha saw that actually self and other are inseparable. So we think that our mind, our consciousness is the self. And so during the empowerment, we are introduced to the fact that there is actually no self. So when you really look at your mind, where really is that self? Actually, you can't find it. There is no self anywhere. The mind is a nature that cannot be described in any way. So it can neither said to be existing, nor can it said to be non-existing. It transcends what we call the 4 extremes. This is how it is explained according to the logic of the Madhyamaka, the middle way. And then there's other methods too to realize the nature of mind, such as according to the practice lineage of blessings, the practices of Mahamudra and Dzogchen. And so when you realize the nature of the mind, that is what we call Buddhahood. And a Buddha means a mind that has become completely free of all fixation, of all grasping. And this mind that is free of all grasping is vast like space. It is also explained that within your own mind, all the qualities of the 3 kayas are complete. The Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, and the Nirmanakaya. So all of that is introduced to us by the empowerment. And then also through the empowerment, we purify the impure karmic tendencies of our body, speech, and mind. And that is through the 3 levels of empowerment. So the form empowerment purifies the body, and the speech empowerment purifies the speech, and the mind empowerment the mind. So the briefest empowerment is divided into these 3 empowerments. And more elaborately, there is also empowerments that have 5 different levels to them, for example. But even though there can be many levels to empowerment, ultimately all empowerments are summarized in those 3, the body, speech, and the mind. And those three are further summarized into the mind empowerment. That's really the essence of any empowerment, to receive the mind empowerment. And during the mind empowerment, we melt this ice block of self-grasping. And so then also one more thing about receiving empowerment. So it is said that the life force of an empowerment is to keep the Samaya. And that is also another reason why sometimes people say that you shouldn't receive too many empowerments, because if you receive an empowerment and you can't keep the Samaya, it's no good. So you don't receive this empowerment. But then this person doesn't really understand what is Samaya. What is Samaya actually? Ultimately, Samaya comes down to the mind empowerment, which is really the ultimate empowerment. And the mind empowerment is really the arising of bodhicitta in your mind. It is when bodhicitta arises that the selfish mind goes away. It is like the warmth that melts the ice block of self-grasping. So we can call it love and compassion, or the altruistic mind. And because it is the essence of every empowerment, there is no empowerment that doesn't begin with refuge and the motivation of bodhicitta, and also end with that, because the Samaya is also bodhicitta. That's the Samaya. So the Samaya actually therefore is love and compassion, immeasurable love and compassion. When your mind is full of love, then your mind naturally is at ease. For example, if you are together with a friend that has great love for you, then you will naturally feel at ease and you will be happy. And that is, in these moments, our ice block, the ice of our mind is melting a little bit. It is melting due to the connection of love that we share with one another. And on the other hand, if a person that you don't get along with comes, you feel resentment, you feel angry. And then it is just like two ice blocks bumping into each other, and then there is conflict and fighting. And then many negative thoughts arise, anger and jealousy, the six afflictive emotions. And these create samsara. So we need to understand how it has happened that our mind became so frozen like an ice block. So this is how it happened. And so again, the life force of the empowerment is the Samaya. And even if you receive 100 empowerments, they all have one single root Samaya. And what is that? It is bodhicitta, or the twofold bodhicitta. And especially for us, the relative bodhicitta. And the relative bodhicitta really in essence is immeasurable love. And if you have that, then immeasurable compassion will naturally arise. So doing the empowerment of any deity, we cultivate bodhicitta. We are introduced to bodhicitta. So an empowerment really is a method, a skillful means for us to cultivate bodhicitta. And it is so through the refuge leads us into a bodhicitta. So that's the important point to understand. And the Buddha had seen that, and that is why the Buddha knew that taking refuge in the three jewels leads to cultivating bodhicitta, and therefore he said, first you should take refuge in the three jewels, and then you should practice the path of love and compassion. That is the Dharma. And then your guide on the path is the Sangha. Even though the Buddha is no longer alive, there is the Sangha who represents the three jewels. The Sangha's body is the Sangha, the speech is the Dharma, and the mind is the Buddha. So therefore, during every empowerment, we always start out with refuge, and then we cultivate bodhicitta. And that is also the Samaya. And so since bodhicitta is the Samaya, actually the argument that you shouldn't receive an empowerment if you can't keep the Samaya actually doesn't hold. Because even if you don't receive an empowerment, if you lose your love for others, if you neglect love, if you further the afflictive emotions, then you will continue to wander in samsara, and whichever of the 6 afflictions is predominant will manifest, will ripen. You can say, for example, if you say that, so as long as I don't receive an empowerment, I'm free, I don't have any samaya, I have no commitment, so I can do whatever I want. I can get angry, I can get jealous as much as I want. But really ask yourself, is it really okay? Because, of course, if you are fine, if you're happy just to go to the 3 lower realms, then in that case it would be okay. But if you don't really want to go there, then you have to hold on to love and compassion. And then your mind will naturally, the ice block of your mind will melt and merge into one with the ocean water. So that is the reason why it is good to receive empowerment. It's because it's good for anyone, because all beings possess Buddha nature. And so now we also understand what is the meaning of the Samaya. So the root Samaya, the actual Samaya, is love and compassion. And if you cultivate love and compassion, then self-grasping will diminish. And when immeasurable love and compassion arise, then you merge with the Buddha mind completely. And until that is accomplished, you will still not become liberated from suffering. So you need to continue to practice the path that the Buddha had laid out. The Buddha taught basically 3 levels of path, of the pratimoksha, the bodhisattva, and the vajrayana path. So again, it is good to receive empowerment, and the more you receive, the better it is. And also, what you can do is, after you have received an empowerment, is that you can also take a self-empowerment, which becomes kind of like a purifying and restoring ceremony. Because sometimes we lose our samaya, our love and our compassion diminishes, and so then we need to restore and purify. And in the sutra path of the pratimoksha, there's a practice called the sojong, which means purifying and restoring. And the empowerment is just like the sojong of the tantric path. So therefore, if you cannot find a guru from whom to receive an empowerment, you can also just take a self-empowerment. And whenever you do that, any empowerment is a method to melt the ice block. It is like applying some warmth to this ice block, putting it out in the sun. So the more empowerment you receive, the more the ice block is melting. So that is the most important thing that we first need to understand when we receive an empowerment in terms of the Samaya. So the Samaya is love or loving kindness. And if you lose your love, it doesn't matter whether or not you have received an empowerment or Samaya, so to speak. If you lose your love, you will go to the 3 lower realms. It becomes the cause of that. And if you receive an empowerment, and if your love declines for some time, of course it is a fault, because we shouldn't let it allow it to degenerate intentionally, knowingly. But also we can purify with this awareness, which is like the sojong. That's why we receive another empowerment, or we take a self-empowerment. And so if we continue to commit, we don't receive empowerment, we don't take any samaya, we think we can do what we want, then whatever of the afflictive emotions is predominant will naturally manifest. Thigden Sumgön had said that cause and effect is the moment-to-moment appearance, or the appearance of one's moment-to-moment thoughts. So that means that if your affliction is anger or hatred, then that will naturally manifest as hell. And if your affliction is greed or stinginess, then that will naturally manifest as the hungry spirit realm. And so in this way, each of the 6 afflictive emotions naturally manifests as a direct experience of the 6 realms of samsara. So, and therefore, now we understand that it is good to receive empowerment, and we also understand the samaya. What is the samaya of the empowerment? So it is love. And we understand that we can take self-empowerment too, also to restore. So those three are important to understand. If you understand them, you will be free of doubts. That's why they are very important. And once you are free of doubts, you can receive any empowerment from any guru, from any lineage. The meaning of any empowerment is the same. So in brief, during an empowerment, we are restoring or purifying the mind. We are applying some heat to the ice block when we cultivate love, and the ice block is melting. So again, the sojong of the sutra path is the empowerment of the tantric path. They have the same meaning. So therefore, please, Dharma friends, I ask you to keep these words dear to your heart, close to your heart. So that is the brief commentary on the meaning of the empowerment.
Więc Rinpocze następnie opisuje nasz umysł, który jest jak blok lodu. Więc jeśli nie zrealizujemy, nie dojrzymy naszej natury mózgu, natury Buddy, mamy percepcję, dualistyczną percepcję siebie i innych. Jesteśmy jak blok lodu. Rozwijamy negatywne emocje takie jak przywiązanie, awersję, niewiedzę i lgniemy do koncepcji ja. I to lgnięcie powoduje mnóstwo cierpienia. W świecie ludzi to cierpienie to jest cierpienie narodzin, śmierci i chorób. W innych światach samsary istoty doświadczają również innych rodzajów cierpienia. Jeśli spojrzymy na świat, który nas otacza, jest tam mnóstwo cierpienia i jeśli chodzi o wiarę, samoistne ja, czy self po angielsku, to byłoby okej wierzyć w jak, ale my wierzymy w coś, co nie istnieje i to jest powodem mnóstwa problemów. I możemy tutaj zacytować Buddę, który opisuje mądrość realizacji stanu bez ja. I ten stan powoli będziemy w stanie rozwijać możliwość bardzo, bardzo wolno w trakcie kolejnych inicjacji, jakby będziemy mogli dostrzec kolejne elementy tego naszego wrodzonego stanu Buddy. W momencie osiągnięcia stanu Buddy jesteśmy poza tą koncepcją ja. Oświecony umysł jest poza dualizmem. Nie da się go opisać w kategorii tego, czy on istnieje, czy też nie istnieje. On przenika poza cztery ekstrema i jest ani nie istnieje, ani nie istnieje, ani możemy poczytać więcej na przykład w naukach Nagarjuny o tym. Praktyka linii takich jak Mahamudra czy Dzogchen, jeśli je zrealizujemy, to dochodzimy do realizacji oświeconego umysłu. I oświecony umysł daje nam wszelkie wolności. Ma on właściwości przestrzeni. Również w momencie, w którym osiągamy oświecenie, osiągamy, jakby realizujemy wszystkie 3 kaje, dharma kaje, sambhoga kaje i nirmana kaje. One będą wszystkie zawarte w naszym oświeconym umyśle. I teraz, jeśli przyjrzymy się inicjacji, to składa się ona z różnych części, może być bardziej lub mniej skomplikowana, ale ogólnie możemy sumaryzować to do inicjacji formy czy ciała, które oczyszcza nasze ciało, inicjacji na poziomie mowy, która oczyszcza mowę i inicjacja na poziomie umysłu, która oczyszcza nasz umysł. I z tych 3 najważniejsza jest inicjacja umysłu. I Rinpocze jeszcze tutaj ominąłem kawałek, wspominał, co się dzieje, jeśli 2 istoty z nieoświeconym umysłem, przypominające 2 bloki lodu, spotkają się ze sobą i wejdą w stan konfliktu. To jest tak, jakby te 2 bloki lodu uderzały o siebie. I że life force, czyli taką naturą inicjacji, jest Samaya.
Of the 3 kayas within their mind. And that is what we are introduced to. And for a Buddha, these qualities are manifest. And so the qualities of the 3 kaya are, the Dharmakaya is like space, and the Sambhogakaya is like a rainbow in the sky, and the Nirmanakaya is like rain falling down. And always, therefore, wherever we go, the 3 kayas pervade all of the 5 elements. In Milarepa's 100,000 Songs, Milarepa said just before his passing that he will continue to pervade the 5 elements. So his nature is beyond death, actually. Just at the time when we are still sentient beings, those 5 elements so the 5 outer elements are connected to the 5 afflictive emotions. And so this is how it appears to us while we are sentient beings. There are the 5 elements and 5 afflictive emotions. So that is when we are immature, unripe. When the mind ripens, then the 5 afflictions actually become the 5 wisdoms. And a sign of that actually is we can often see a rainbow in the sky. A rainbow in the sky actually is the natural radiance, the light of the 5 wisdoms, or the form of the Sambhogakaya. And when we see a rainbow, therefore, we can actually see the natural light of the 5 wisdoms. And so this is how the 5 wisdoms pervade the 5 elements in 5 different colors. And so when we receive an empowerment, so there is a Vajramaster who confers the empowerment. And it's necessary to have such a Vajramaster because a Vajramaster is someone who understands the meaning of the empowerment. And the sentient being who receives the empowerment also possesses Buddha nature, like all beings possess Buddha nature. It is just that temporarily their aggregates, the sense sources, their elements are impure. So they are in an unripe state, just like the seed of a flower. So they need to be introduced by someone who understands how things really are. And that is the Vajramaster. The Vajramaster introduces them because the Vajramaster himself has seen how things really are. And so how things really are is that there is no self. This is what the Vajramaster has realized. And this is what sentient beings have not realized. So they think that there is this me, I am here, I'm a sentient being. And So basically what we call a sentient being is someone who doesn't understand how things really are. And so therefore in empowerment we are introduced to that. And so then once you're introduced to that, you realize that actually I can become a perfect Buddha. It is just like when wood meets with fire, then the wood itself also becomes fire. It turns into fire, it's burned. And so similarly, if we meet with the meaning during the empowerment, if we understand the meaning, we realize that we can actually become complete, perfect Buddhas. Because we are introduced during the empowerment that the qualities are inherent within us. So we have said the Dharmakaya is the space-like, empty and all-pervasive nature of the mind. And then the Sambhogakaya it's like a rainbow in the sky, and are the various deities and the pure lands that manifest everywhere. So the Yidam deity is what we call the Sambhogakaya. And Nirmanakaya, actually, it is said that all 6 realms of samsara are actually Nirmanakayas. So we are actually all Nirmanakayas. The Dharmakaya and the Sambhogakaya are the pure aspects. And for the Nirmanakaya, there are pure and impure Nirmanakayas, or aspects to it, which is basically just like ice and water coexisting in this world. So that's the Nirmanakaya. We call others Nirmanakaya or a Druku, but what the actual meaning of that is that it is because all beings possess Buddha nature. Everybody possesses the cause of awakening, the potential, and therefore for this reason everyone really is a Nirmanakaya or a Druku. It is just temporarily that we are controlled by our karmic imprints, those habitual patterns, which keep us in a confused state. So we perceive things in a distorted way. The mind has become like an ice block. But if the sun touches it, it can melt. And that is the commentary that we receive from the Vajramaster. It's like the sun touching our ice block. And then when the disciple understands the meaning of the instructions and engages in practice, then they themselves can mature their body, speech, and mind into the enlightened body, speech, and mind of the deity, which is just like an ice block merging indivisibly with the ocean water. So once you have received one empowerment, then you can also take self-empowerment. And that also is a skillful, so therefore an empowerment also is a skillful means that kind of helps you to take a self-empowerment. Again, in the empowerment, we are introduced to the all-pervasive nature of the Dharmakaya and also Sambhogakaya, and that all beings are actually Nirmanakayas because, as Gampopa also had said, all Buddha nature pervades all sentient beings. So when you receive these instructions, you recognize that I possess Buddha nature. If I cultivate bodhicitta, I can become awakened, I can become enlightened. And so that which ripens you, therefore, that which matures you is bodhicitta. If you keep cultivating it over and over again continuously, you keep cultivating the 4 immeasurables, bodhicitta, and with that mind you cultivate, you habituate to the deity, visualization, and the mantra recitation, your body, speech, and mind will become completely pure. And through the visualization of the deity or the form empowerment, you purify the karmic imprints of the body. And then through the speech empowerment, you purify the karmic imprints of speech. And through the mind empowerment, you purify the karmic imprints of the mind. And that is what's actually most important. And that's why the empowerment begins with that, with bodhicitta, with the 4 immeasurables. Because if the 4 immeasurables arise within you, you will actually realize the ultimate truth naturally. And so that is the ultimate nature, the ultimate essence of the 3 empowerments is included therefore within that, within bodhicitta. And so today we are receiving the Vajrapani empowerment. So there's sometimes those three deities that come together. It is Vajrapani, Manjushri, and Chenrezig. And Vajrapani is said to be the embodiment of all the Buddhas of the 3 times enlightened mind. So he's the essence of all the Buddha's enlightened mind. And actually all the Vajra deities are related to the enlightened mind. For example, Vajrakilaya is also a manifestation of the Buddha's enlightened mind. Or then there is Manjushri, would be the body. So the Vajra kind of deities, especially Vajrapani, are the mind. Manjushri is body, and Chenrezig is speech. So these who represent the enlightened body, speech, and mind of all the Buddhas after 3 times. So all the Vajra deities are a representation of the enlightened mind. So, for example, Vajrapani, or also Vajradhara, and so on. And the meaning that we're introduced to is great, because Vajra is really the true nature of the mind. We speak about the mind Vajra, the Vajra of the mind. The mind Vajra is the mind that transcends birth and death. So it's the everlasting natural state. That's the Vajra mind. And so that is what we must realize. And so not realizing that, not realizing our Vajra mind nature, we perceive duality of self and other. We think it's me and him and so on. And due to this grasping at me as this I, we continue to suffer and wander in the 6 realms of samsara. So therefore, all those beings who have not recognized their Vajra mind nature are sentient beings who suffer. And when you realize your Vajra mind nature, then you see that my own mind actually is beyond birth and death. And therefore, even though I have wandered in samsara endlessly, the mind is still the same. The mind has never been born, and it has never died. So if you understand the meaning of this, you have understood the meaning of all the empowerments. And so next I will read the historical background of the Vajrapani empowerment.
Więc Vajrapani jest uosobieniem oświeconych właściwości wszystkich Buddów. Wszystkie bóstwa posiadają ten sam oświecony umysł i możemy widzieć Vajrapani jako umysł Buddy, Chenrezi jako ciało Buddy, a Manjushriego jako mowę Buddy. Vajrapani czy Vajradhara reprezentuje w tym wypadku umysł Buddy. Prawdziwa natura umysłu Vajry przenika poza dualistyczną pogląd, gdzie istnieje ja i inni, poza ten dualizm. Gdy otrzymujemy błogosławieństwo, gdy otrzymujemy inicjację, możemy w przyszłości udzielać sobie samą inicjacji. Na przykład Gampopa mówił, że natura Buddy przenika wszystkie istoty. Gdy to zrozumiemy, osiągamy oświecenie. Musimy praktykować 4 nieskończoności, bodhicittę, i gdy oczyścimy wszystkie karmiczne tendencje i zanieczyszczenia umysłu i ciała, nasze ciało przekształca się w ciało Buddy, mowa w mowę Buddy, a umysł w umysł Buddy. I drogą do realizacji tego jest praktyka bodhicitty. Ona w spontaniczny sposób pozwala nam dojrzeć prawdziwą naturę umysłu. I tym, kto wprowadza nas w tą naturę umysłu, jest mistrz Vajry. On nam ukazuje, że możemy stać się doskonałym Buddą. I jeśli chodzi o Dharmakaję, Sambhogakaję i Nirmanakaję, Dharmakaję możemy widzieć jako umysł, Sambhogakaję jako różne idamy czy bóstwa, a Nirmanakaję to wszystkie istoty w 6 światach samsary. Dharmakaja i Nirmanakaja są to czyste kaje, a jeśli chodzi o Nirmanakaję, to są czyste i nieczyste. W tym przypadku istoty, które odradzają się jako tulku, będą reprezentować czystą Nirmanakaję, ale zasadniczo wszyscy jesteśmy Nirmanakają. I musimy pamiętać, że jesteśmy w tym nieczystym stanie jedynie tymczasowo, że jesteśmy jak blok lodów, który w każdej chwili może się stopić i gdy uczeń otrzymuje te nauki, rozumie je i zaczyna praktykować, rezultatem jest to, że osiągamy poziom bóstwa i to jest tak, czyli dama, i to jest tak, że jakby bryła lodu łączy się z oceanem. I Dharmakaja jest jak przestrzeń, zawiera w sobie wszystkie 3 kaje. I też możemy spojrzeć na świat wokół nas. Na nieczystym poziomie 5 elementów reprezentuje 5 skażeń umysłu. Teraz przejdę do
It is said in the Manjushri Namasankiti, I am
w wypadku tej inicjacji okay.
The mind emanation is Vajra, the quality emanation is Guya Samaja, and the activity emanation is Kala Chakra. They all have the same essence. It is said in a Tantra, when you see my body, all beings are in the nature Buddhas. When you hear my voice, you obtain happiness even if you are in samsara. When you realize my mind, all sentient beings are in nature Buddhas. If you obtain this empowerment of Wadżrapani and make him your Yidam deity, no one among the 8 classes of gods and demons can harm you. It is said in the Vajrapani Tantra, if you always persevere in this practice, there is no doubt that the 8 classes of gods and demons will be like your servants. And ultimately, it will make you indivisible from the Vajra mind of all the Buddhas. It belongs to the Kriya Tantras and the Vajra family. The sadhana is composed by Acharya Achikten Sumgidwache. So then after that, Rinpoche read the name of the lineage masters, and so it was enough for you just to have heard their names once. And Rinpoche himself had received this empowerment from Dr. Ningbo, who was Rinpoche's, Lamchen Rinpoche's uncle, Lamchen Gyabo Rinpoche's uncle.
Dosa dosa maya, mane palaya, bedasa toteno, the doctor me bawa, so the cow me bawa, so bochao me ba, Anaracto me bawa, so what the me ba, yet sawa kalma sudame, Tudamjiam guru ho, ha 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 ho, bagay, sawa tatang gata beda mame, mentam beda ba, ma samaya sato. Kekade samai chile ho ambe ne da hong bai o so ba ke da wa da ma so ba ke da wa tong ma no o so wo mo ji ye ja ja wa na o a hong so wa so wa to ma ka ye to ma so me de wa ji ba ji je ni ba na ko sa ya ba jo ma ga ma ga so wa ma a de ni me no ma o ba do Uma Garma Mana de Menazoma, Bezo, Uma Garma, 아디니베나 도마 홍바이소 와나 마사와도 나가다 아와로 그래 오면 삼바라 홍나 마사와도 나가다 아와로 그래 오면 삼바라 홍나 마사 다사가다 아와로 그래 오면 삼바라 홍 되게 많이 힘만 서더라도 이제 완전히 삼바라 서더라도 이제 뭐가 잘내는데 되게 좀 탐지던 거라라 상타도 관계 좀 맞아 우다라가 다서 뭐 자기 소화당 생기 넘어나서 저렇게 봐서는 하더라도 저와 전혀라 비단데 진짜 뭐 저반데 그들라 니버서 뭐 저와다 생기 넘는 편에 원하는 담방은 세진을 배워서 tren치 지켜봐지 지지지지는 치도도 저렇게 양다도는 담방 좀 먹을라지 바빠만 결혼게 좀 되는 담대한테 되게 매주 가능해 서로 거저들랑 그걸 빼는 거 이런 거 봐. 마을에 좀 제보 좀 가다 이런 거 방금 내다 돈주라 그래서 사업을 그래서 뭐 수반에서 만나 혼자는 라나 봐야 안에 호가가 봐야 랑 걸리고 또 사바토가랑 이제 성님은 오단 말게 싸워 우리 소탐제대 작정 마와라서 때 도저 도지 가다 돼야 나달라고 오타지로 오타지 도지 사실 어제 소타도지 도지 자와치 못하고 대사가 반담나서 도지 다이어트가 서로 도지 라와 대해서 시점에 봄 반삼에 봤던 멋지던 마치는 과송을 걸어 이제 자지와 저 오면데네 베자 바와 베자 따가라 비자라 베타나 샤라도라 탐삼탐 온베타도라 아나나가 홍홍홍홍홍홍 들이 왕도답들이 담면 답을관이 들이 강이나 들이 코베사와 단진이 들이 단진이 되는 코가 중물이 들이 아지 선왕 탐제들이 다 성들이 다 메가 보고래 됩니다.
So next we will offer a mandala.
Następnie ofiarujemy mandalę.
The reason why we offer a mandala, how we offer mandala during an empowerment, is that
Mandalę ofiarujemy w
the
trakcie
root of samsara is self-grasping.
inicjacji, dlatego że powodem samsary jest
bring to mind
wbicie
all of that
do ja.
self-grasping of self and other, and also along with the entire outer universe.
Kierując mandalę rozpuszczamy
to
wpięcie do siebie
And
innych.
so next we will recite the mandala offering.
Przejdziemy teraz do ofiarowania mandali.
So when you offer a
Gdy
mandala, you
ofiarujesz
think that
mandalę,
you're offering limitless universes up
ofiarujesz
to
niezliczone
all the Buddha's
wszechświaty
pervading space.
do wszystkich
And we are
Buddów,
going to recite
którzy
the
znajdują się w
mandala
przestrzeni.
offering that comes from the Guru Yoga practice of Milarepa. The
To ofiarowanie
words of this particular mandala
mandali
offering are
pochodzi
very
z Guru
profound.
Yogi Milarepy.
So in the yellow prayer book that's on page 7.
Ono znajduje się w żółtej
An infinite
książeczce
array
na
of
stronie
worlds,
7.
each with 4 continents and the wealth of infinite oceans of realms. If I bring them all to mind and offer them without exception, please hold with compassion all the beings they contain. My body, enjoyments, and whatever I own, my aggregates, elements, and sense sources, my aspirations now and in times to come, as well as everything I grasp as mine. By offering them all, may I be blessed with the end of self-grasping, completely liberated from the bounds of real and unreal, transcending the names and concepts of arising, cessation, and abiding, coming and going, affirmation and denial. The supreme mandala is the natural state. By offering it, may I be blessed to attain the state of Buddhahood. Om Guru Devanta Kini Ratna Mandala Pratija Soha.
다 왕 lama number cover copy nanda, three Rana Wang Niba Capsa Nanda, Tritilla, Kitchik in Namkara, Chukan Namkara, long Italy, Longa Jasoya, not one Shivza Kang in a destroy basically, so that you don't suggest on the Kitchik Pegons are three Masi Achiga, poor, to make a gauge on the three Martin Yingin were paid just of the Sanjay Tamsi, 17 Tamsila, March of Pata was already. So a Tabata, so a Madame 2 years already. So I don't know some partisans, Musipeki or Nishiki or
So whether you are receiving empowerment from Guru or you are taking a self-empowerment.
Czy jeśli otrzymujemy inicjację od guru lub sami dostajemy inicjację, myślimy, że bóstwo pojawia się z Dharmakai w jednej chwili, tak jak światło, tęczowe światło myślimy, że główne bóstwo, którego otrzymujemy błogosławieństwo, jest przed nami, ono jest otoczone wszystkimi Buddami trzech czasów. Bóstwo ukazuje się tak jak matka, która przychodzi słysząc płacz swojego dziecka. To jest jak miłość matki do dziecka. Miłość Buddów jest tak samo jak miłość matki. Nawet jeśli do Buddów nie zwracamy się o pomoc, oni naturalnie są tutaj, żeby nam pomóc.
Olo, Nam Jongwa, Teren, Piebe, Rinchi Jeb, Towu, Dala, Garchen.
In English, embodiment of omniscient wisdom,
uosobienie
who utterly
oświeconego
purifies
umysłu,
the wheel of existence through your kindness, please grant
poprzez
me
swoją
the
dobroć,
principal deity
proszę udziel
of the
nam
precious
główne
treasury
bóstwo,
you are setting forth today.
Lamadang the DJ, Lasonam, the Tonga Jackson, Rosie, the Quachapata, Giva, Gisa Yeron, Sancho to the Sim, Kipatan, give us our Zozo, Sancho to Huati, Jinanga, Mundo, Jim Changanam, that give us later, they didn't do.
And then next up, please repeat the 5 pure branches, which is to take refuge and to cultivate bodhicitta, to confess all misdeeds and obscurations, and is to rejoice, and then finally to dedicate the roots of virtue from these practices toward the complete awakening, enlightenment of all sentient beings. So please repeat the following supplication.
Proszę, powtarzajcie.
Somla, Da Jabji, Dekba, Mege, So Sha, Ruwe, Gela, Ji Yi Rang, Sangye, Chang Chap, Yi Ji Zong, Sangye, Chu Dang, Chom Cho La, Chang Chap, Parse, Da Jiang Qi, Rang Ji, Dong Ni, Rab Zhab Ser, Chang Chap, Sem Ne, Ji Bar Ji, Chang Chap, Cho Ke, Sem Ne, Ji Ji Ne, Sem Jin, Tam Jie, Da Ki, Rong De Nier, Jiang Che, Zhum Cho, Yi Ong, Jie Bar Ji, Rola, Pinsel, Sangye,
I take refuge in the three jewels. I confess all misdeeds and non-virtues. I rejoice in the virtue of all beings, and I hold the awakening of the Buddha in mind until attaining awakening. I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly in order to fully accomplish the purpose of others and myself. I give rise to bodhicitta, having given rise to the mind of supreme awakening. I welcome all beings. I will engage in the supreme bodhisattva conduct that is pleasing to all. May I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all beings. So Dharma friends, please take a break for 20 minutes. During the break, keep thinking about bodhicitta and think, I want to benefit sentient beings. And if you have bodhicitta, actually think that even if I go to pee now, I will benefit sentient beings by peeing.
Myślcie, że jeśli mam, że myślcie o tym, że cokolwiek robicie, nawet jeśli musimy iść do ubikacji, to myślcie, że to przynosi pożytek innym. Może w tej chwili, bo kawałek opuściłem z powodu tego, że za szybko Ina mówiła. Rinpocze wspominał, że o Samaya, że jeśli nie musimy się obawiać tego, że przyjmując wiele inicjacji weźmiemy na siebie jakby za dużo Samaya. Samaya to po prostu jest umysł przepełniony miłością i każda inicjacja ogranicza się do tego umysłu miłości. I jeśli po prostu utracimy ten umysł miłości, to w zależności od tego, jaka dominująca, przeszkadzająca emocja w umyśle pozostanie, to doprowadzi nas do odpowiedniego odrodzenia w którymś z niższych światów samsary. Także jeśli ktoś nie ma nic przeciwko temu, to po prostu Rinpocze nic z tym nie może zrobić. I jest dobrą rzeczą, aby otrzymywać wiele inicjacji, bo one jakby pomagają nam budować ten umysł, współczujący umysł. I po otrzymaniu inicjacji również możemy w chwili, gdy czujemy, że nasza Samaya miłości i współczucia uległa pewnej degeneracji, udzielić sobie samoinicjacji. I tak jak w tradycji sutr praktyka sojong, czyli praktyka dawania i brania, z tego co sobie przypominam, to jej odpowiednikiem sodziągu w Vajrayanie jest samoinicjacja. I za pierwszym razem potrzebujemy oświeconego czy zrealizowanego guru, który udzieli nam inicjacji. To jest ktoś, kto już roztopił ten blok lodu i nam jakby ukazuje nam ten stan umysłu. I Jigden Sunggon mówił, że samsara czy afflictions to jest, czyli splamienia, splamiony umysł to jest, on jest niczym innym, tylko po angielsku to jest moment to moment thought, czyli umysł w danym, czyli myśl w danym momencie w umyśle. To tak bym przetłumaczył. Jeśli w danym momencie dominującą myślą czy uczuciem jest gniew, to doprowadzi nas do odrodzenia w świecie piekielnym. Jeśli chytrość jest dominującym uczuciem, to doprowadzi nas do odrodzenia w świecie głodnych duchów. W związku z tym dobrze jest przyjmować tyle inicjacji, ile możemy i utrzymywać naszą samej miłości. I niezależnie od tego, czy inicjacja, jaki by guru nie udzielał jej, czy z jakiej ona linii by nie pochodziła, to jej istotą jest umysł pełen miłości. Czyli w linii sutr praktykujemy sodziąg, a w Vajrayanie praktykujemy inicjację.